In this video, you are going to get a front row seat to the ultimate breakdown and analysis of how the Springboks beat the All Blacks in the Rugby Championship in Cape Town. Wow, guys, just wow. What a test match. It was old-fashioned in many ways. There were some new things that we saw as well. And for the first time since 1949, the South Africans have beaten New Zealand 4 times in a row. My parents weren't even born at that stage. We've also got our hands on the Freedom Cup for the first time since 2009, and barring a catastrophe against Argentina in the last 2 matches, we are going to win the Rugby Championship as well for the first time since 2019, and the first time a full Rugby Championship competition since the competition rebranded back in 2012. It'll be a very, very satisfying feeling if we can do that. And on top of that, should we beat Argentina home and away, and we're not there yet, but if we can do that, it'll be the first time since 1998 that we win the Rugby Championship or the Tri-Nations by winning all of our matches, going through the whole tournament unbeaten. It feels pretty good to be a Springbok fan right about now. And a very well done to our world champion heroes on top of all that. Right, let's take a look at this match. The anthems were beautiful. The haka was respected by the crowd. There was some controversy about that in the week leading up. The aeroplane flew over the stadium on time, so everybody was happy at that stage. And then in the match itself, it was an interesting way in which the match began, because in many ways it was similar to what we saw last week. New Zealand came at South Africa hard. I think last week they came at us harder than they did this week, but nevertheless they came at us hard, tried to make an impact early on. They were in our 22 in the early stages of the match, but I think that our defense this time round was a little bit better, and that was really good to see. Now, early on in the match, Grant Williams was blown up. The referee had called on him to use it, and he obviously went longer than the officially allotted 5 seconds, and he was blown up for that. It's something that you don't really see that often in World Rugby. The referees are actually quite lenient with it, and I won't lie to you, at that stage I thought to myself, oh boy, it's going to be one of those days. And then that was not helped by the Handré Pollard-Mark Talia incident. You may remember what happened. It was a high ball, and Pollard jumped for it, and Talia took him out in the air. Now, when you watch it in real time, let's be honest, it looks horrific. And the first thing that I thought when I saw it in real time was, oh, that's a red card. And then it wasn't even a yellow card, and it was just a case of carry on almost. And it's interesting because this is where I think television broadcasters can do a better job when it comes to their overall rugby coverage. Now, most people would have seen that in real time and would have thought red card, right? And upon the replay, a lot of people would have looked at it and thought foul play. But there are other people who have, let's say, superior knowledge of the laws of the sport. And I'm going to come to the laws of the game later in this video as well, because there's something that I have a big problem with. But, you know, it's the law of the land. There's nothing I can do about it. But it doesn't mean I have to like it. But just on this one. So if you look at it, what actually happens is you've got Pollard, who is effectively jumping into Talia. And that negates the red card or the yellow card argument. So what it's actually saying is that Mark Talia had nowhere to go. And there was a compelling argument for a card. It turns out that by the interpretation of the officials, it was not the case. So again, I think that is an area where you might be able to have somebody on the panel during the match coverage who can then explain to the viewers and say, listen, it might look like a red card or even a yellow card, but it's not, and this is why. And I do think that the TV coverage can be quite helpful sometimes. We see on the graphic on the screens that it'll say things like the penalty was awarded for not rolling away or not releasing the ball. We see that sort of thing, but I do think that it can be better. And I think that is one particular area where they can improve. Now, something else that we saw in the early stages of that match was a willingness to run with the ball from the Springboks. I saw on X somebody was calling it Tony ball, and I really like that. I'm going to run with that. So from now on, whatever the Boks do in attack, I'm calling it Tony ball, unless it's up front, of course, because I feel like Tony Brown's not really influencing necessarily what the forwards are doing, not in terms of their attacking scrums and mauls and that sort of thing, but certainly what the backline are up to. That's Tony Brown, and we're calling it Tony ball. I've decided that is what we are going with, and you're welcome to coin that phrase as well now going forward. Tony ball. We're going to talk more about Tony ball because it's caused some controversy, but again, I'm going to leave that for later in the video. Let's stick with the chronological order of the match in the meantime. Jasper Visser was shown a yellow card in the 14th minute. That was for tackling the man without the ball. Damian McKenzie slots the penalty, and it's 3-0 to the All Blacks in Cape Town. And by the time McKenzie made it 6-0, there was something of a pattern that had started to develop in this match. There were a couple of things going on. One, South Africa's line-out, I wouldn't say it was malfunctioning. I feel like that might be a little bit extreme, but it wasn't going well. And here's another case in point where maybe the Springboks might be trying to do a little bit too much in one go. And I understand that Rassie Erasmus is trying to change the way that the team plays, and again we'll comment a little bit more on that later, but something that we saw was, instead of just the stock standard line out, and you got Bongi throwing in out, Bongi missed one or two jumpers as well, that must be said. I thought Ruan Nokia was excellent actually in the line outs. That we stole some ball at the line out as well off New Zealand, so certainly not a malfunction, but what you were seeing was lots of movement around the lineouts. We saw this at the Rugby World Cup last year as well. It became a tactic for a lot of teams. Ireland, for example, come to mind. They were one of the big proponents of it. But sometimes, guys, I think you just got to keep it simple. And when you're playing against the very best teams in the world, and New Zealand are exactly that, then maybe you do need to try and keep it a little bit more simple. That said, we got away with it. And by the time the final whistle blew, we had beaten them twice. Warts and all, let's put it that way. There are many areas in which the Springboks can improve, the line-out being one of them. Something else that I wasn't happy with, it was the same story last week, was the handling errors. And again, Tony Ball calls on the team to be more expansive. There's more passing in the back line. There's more creativity, more innovation. It's all beautiful, but you've got to be able to hold on to the ball. And we can't be dropping the ball 5 or 6 times every 40 minutes because we got away with it. But you know what? There's going to come a time, because the All Blacks are going to improve under Scott Robertson, and there will come a time when we don't get away with it. And I don't want that to happen. That said, again, I know what Rassie's trying to do here, and it is working. We've tried it against the very best teams here, and it worked. So I suppose in that sense, it's quite scary for our opponents that we are able to be functioning at, in my opinion, maybe only 70% currently, and still getting away with it and beating teams like the All Blacks. Very scary for New Zealand. Something where they were dominating us without a shadow of a doubt was the breakdown. They were superb in that area. I thought Cody Taylor was the man of the first 40 minutes. Maybe not man of the match, but certainly man of the first half. He was just superb. I wouldn't say I'm a big fan of Cody Taylor's, but I thought he was excellent in this fixture, and well done to him as well, because it was an immense performance. Handré Pollard did get us back into the game to make it 6-3, and then McKenzie with the 41st minute penalty, as you might call it in football. Obviously the hoot had already sounded, so the clock doesn't move, but it was in the 41st minute. He made it 9-3, and quite frankly, you would have to say that New Zealand deserved their lead at halftime, and South Africa had a lot to work on. My own personal opinion was that the handling errors were the biggest problem. I know we were getting murdered at the breakdown, but I was confident that with someone like Kwagga Smith coming on and Malcolm Marx, that would make a big difference. And at the same time, the lineouts, you felt like that was something that could also be fixed. Again, you've got a change of hooker, couple of other players who make up part of the lineout, that would change as well. So I was confident that the lineouts and the breakdown could change, but it's those bloody handling errors that was, in my opinion, the number one factor. I know other people will say the lineout or the breakdown. At least we were doing well in the scrums. We were quite solid there, so I was happy with that. But that was the situation. We were 9-3 down at halftime, and let's be honest, things were not looking good. Now let's talk a little bit about New Zealand, because obviously this is a Springbok themed YouTube channel, but I think it's fair to talk a little bit more about our opponents. I think, judging by the comment section last week, maybe I didn't say enough about the All Blacks, and something that was interesting to me coming into the match was the selection of Mark Talia and Sevu on the wings, and that told me that they were going to be going wide, right? Old school New Zealand rugby, if you like. They were going to be looking to get the ball to the wings in space. And something interesting is that Talia and Reese actually didn't get the ball all that often anyway in the first half, and when they did, it wasn't necessarily in space, and that might be one of the reasons why what happened. But I found that when they did get the ball, they would look to come inside, either from the left wing or the right wing. They would look to come inside. And with the Springbok defence, which the best way to describe it, I find, I mean, we talk about the rush defence, but it's an umbrella defence, right? The idea is that you sort of encircle and close off the opponent, the attacking team. And so I would have thought that if you are on the wings and you receive the ball, you would be looking to go around the umbrella, because that's where you create the most space. But Reese, as well as Talia, in both men's cases, looked to come inside instead, maybe looking for the safety of the forwards, coming closer to where Ruck had just most recently formed. So that was something that I found very interesting. Look, I'm not a coach, and I'm certainly not a data analyst or a performance analyst. So maybe those guys would be watching this video and say, "Oh man, this guy, well, he knows nothing." But that's just an observation, and something that I find quite interesting. Right, let's talk about the second half. 5 minutes in, Malcolm Marx is indeed on the field, and he makes an almost immediate impact. I think it was a minute after he came on, we managed to score a try. Eben Etzebeth, if you saw it on the TV, he leaned forward, and the problem that we had there was that the referee said no try, but awarded it to the TMO, or referred it to the TMO. So what happens in that case? You refer to the TMO, but the on-field decision is the one that carries more weight. And if I'm honest with you, there were two TV replays. The first one, it looked like Eben was short. The second one, it looked like he may have been on the line. I thought he was actually on the line. My wife was watching the game with me, and she said, "No, I don't think he has managed to hit the line there." So here you can see two people looking at the same thing at the same time and having a different view. And I was wearing my glasses, just so you know. And they're not green and gold glasses either. I thought it was a try. Interestingly, if the referee had said that the on-field decision is try, then the TMO would have had to look for a reason, conclusive evidence to suggest that it's not a try, and I think then it would have been awarded, because I don't think that the evidence was conclusive either way. It's quite interesting. If you're a cricket fan, you'll know from the way that it works there, where you have a thing called umpire's call. So let's say it's a LBW decision and the umpire says it's not out and the team refers, and even if it shows that the ball was clipping the wicket, so technically it is out, because the margin of error was so small, the on-field umpire's decision stands, and therefore it remains not out, even though technically it actually was out. So in this case, technically it may have been a try, but the referee has said no try, and we cannot find conclusive evidence. Obviously, that's just an example. That's not exactly how it works, because obviously in rugby, we're not dealing with things like Hawkeye, for example. Anyway, Marx is on. We don't get our try, but not to worry. Not long after that, we do get our try. Siya Kolisi, captain, fantastic. It felt to me, because he came off somewhere around 58 minutes, I think it was actually, and it felt to me like Siya came on in the second half after half time and decided he's going to play for the next 15 to 20 minutes as if he is the man of the match. And he was brilliant. Siya was superb. And broken nose or not, he was magnificent. And you know what? I found some personal satisfaction in the way that Siya scored his try. He went through two All Black defenders. The one on his left-hand side was Sam Cane. And as it turns out, it's not so easy when you try to make a legal tackle. Sasha converted the try, and the Springboks were in the lead, 10-9. sorry, forgive me, it was actually Pollard that converted. He would soon come off, and then Sasha would go on. There was also a change with Kane and Moody coming off. Lucanio came onto the field. Jesse Creel moved to the right wing. So there was a lot going on at that stage. Even New Zealand, perhaps trying their own bomb squad tactic, they sent on 4 players at exactly the same time. So things were getting heated in the mother city with just 20 or less minutes to go. The score was 10-9. It almost felt like the World Cup again, didn't it? We were leading by 1 point and it was edge of the seat stuff. Now, speaking of Sasha, he would soon convert a penalty of his own, and that made the score 13-9. So it looked like there was a little bit of a gap, and the momentum certainly felt like it was now shifted in our favour. And I sat on my couch watching this one, and I felt quite comfortable. Usually when I watch Springboks All Blacks test matches, I'm a nervous wreck, and it's not good for my blood pressure, of course, which calls into question how long this channel will actually be able to continue for. But hopefully, maybe I get blood pressure tablets in the future, and it will all work out. But I tell you what, it was tense. But 13-9, at that point, I felt like, okay, we are in the ascendancy here, but the pendulum was going to swing one more time, at least, wasn't it? Because it wasn't long after that Damian McKenzie made it 13-12, and then came the Willie le Roux yellow card. Now, this is where I want to stop for a moment, because I said we'd talk about this a bit more, and now is the time to discuss this in detail. So what actually happened? The All Blacks are playing the ball down their line. Willie le Roux is looking for the intercept. And I think that in the defense of the lawmakers, he's also aware that he's got a man on his outside, and if that man gets the ball, he might have a clear run to the try line. So obviously that's part of Willie's thinking here. Willie goes with his left hand for the intercept. He gets it, but he doesn't make a clean hold. And what happens is the ball bounces up. Willie tries to regain it, is unable to do so, and it counts as a knock-on. Okay, I can live with that. It's a knock-on scrum to the All Blacks. That is what the law should be, in my opinion. Instead, the law says that if you go for the ball and you don't grab it cleanly, or at least grab it a second time and gain control of it, i.e. you knock it on, it's a yellow card. It doesn't matter what the circumstances are. And I strongly, strongly disagree with that. In my opinion, cards should be for foul play and or cynical play. Is what Willie le Roux did there cynical? Now, suppose you could say the knowledge that there's a man on his outside, and if that man gets the ball, he could potentially have a clear run to the try line, so therefore him sticking his hand out is cynical. But what if he did manage to stick a hand out and then gain control of the ball, and then he might have gone all the way for an intercept try himself? I just think that this is a law that doesn't make sense. I don't like it. I strongly disagree with it. I always have. I think if it's a case of the player unable to get control of the ball and deliberately slapping it out of the sort of orbit of the next receiving player, then okay, maybe that might be a case for cynical play. Okay, yellow card. I don't know if it's a yellow card. Maybe it'll be a penalty try, especially if it's close to the try line. What Willie did, I just think it shouldn't be a law. Unfortunately, it is a law. So now the Springboks are down to 10 men. It's 13-12. Damian McKenzie lines up a penalty shortly thereafter. And lo and behold, he actually misses. I don't know how. I don't know why. He misses. And we got away with one there, I would say. But you know what? We could put it down to pressure even. Pressure does strange things to even the most talented of players. McKenzie misses. We live to fight on in this match. It's 13-12 when it could have been 15-13 to the All Blacks, but it's not. It might also be worth pointing out that South Africa had several opportunities where they could have gone for 3 points, and they continued to go for the touchline. The scrum, the line out, the maul, all of these various options took precedence over a 3-point option. And had we managed to put those over, then even McKenzie's 2 misses, as it turns out, because there was another one later, would have counted for nothing anyway. But it's just interesting, because not that long ago, you would have said, Test match rugby, 3 points are up for grabs, you take it every single time. But clearly, the Springboks have got a slightly different mindset these days. It's nice to see, but again, it's not really that good for the blood pressure. Okay, what's next? 73 minutes. That's what's next. Tyrell Lomax upends Cheslin Colby. Now, this, we talk about cynical play. This isn't foul play, but this is cynical. What happens? Cheslin Colby is making his way through the All Blacks defences. Tyrell Lomax is standing in a relatively still position. He's unable to turn to make a tackle, or at least it appears that way. And what he does is he casually leans to try and obstruct Cheslin, which he successfully does. That is the very definition of cynical play. Lomax is given a yellow card. The All Blacks have lost a key player with 7 minutes to go. He ain't coming back, and now there's trouble, especially for the New Zealanders. Because what happens? Sure enough, about a minute later, we get a line out. From the line out, we maul, and Malcolm Marx goes over for what ultimately is the winning try. Sasha Feinberg and Ngomezulu unable to convert. Maybe one of it was a big surprise. We thought, okay, Sasha will put it up, but he didn't. So 18-12 now to the Springboks with about 5 minutes to go in Cape Town. And at that point, you're thinking Tyrell Lomax is off the field. Villi's going to come back very soon. This match is South Africa's. Surely now we are going to win. But you know what? The All Blacks are never truly beaten, are they? But there wouldn't be another opportunity for them. South Africa doing very well to keep them in their own half and take care of business. Maybe that's the best way to put it. The final whistle blows. 18-12. South Africa have won. Mackenzie, he had 2 misses I mentioned. The other one was just before that Malcolm Marx try. And what happened there? Gerard Steenekamp gave away the penalty. Damian McKenzie lined up right in front of the posts, just about, slightly off angle, but the kind of kick that you'd expect him to put over, quite frankly, 100 out of 100 times. But it turns out it's the kind of kick he would put over 99 out of 100 times. And this was the one time that he would miss. I couldn't believe it, to be honest. And that was when the score was still 13-12. So South Africa managed to escape again there from going behind. So let's be honest, guys. New Zealand could easily have won this match as well as the test match at Ellis Park. Would we say South Africa were lucky? I wouldn't say that, because similarly, you might say that had the All Blacks won both test matches, or even one of the two, we might have been sitting here saying South Africa could have won. South Africa had their chances, and maybe had it not been for those damn handling errors, maybe we would have won both matches by more comfortable scorelines. Having said that, I think that from a New Zealand point of view, they must be looking at this saying, we could have beaten the world champions on both occasions here in South Africa, but for ill discipline. That is what I would put down to as the biggest factor in the All Blacks' demise in both test matches here. Don't forget what happened last week at Ellis Park. Yellow card in the last 10 minutes. Crucial, as it turned out. It was crucial because they were in trouble, and that's when the Springboks were able to take full advantage in the last 10 to 12 minutes. And then again here, Tyrell Lomax on this occasion, the man being yellow carded. And again, the All Blacks reduced at a key moment. South Africa were leading anyway at that stage, but imagine if he had stayed on the field. New Zealand will never know. And, well, that's not our problem, but it is their problem. They've had their chances. Now, something else that is very interesting, because ill discipline cost them at the Rugby World Cup last year. In the final, what happened? Sam Cane was red carded very early in the match. And we saw that also in the Qatar Airways Cup final at Twickenham when Scott Barrett was red carded very early in the match. Interesting fact for you. In the last 4 test matches between South Africa and New Zealand, the All Blacks have scored 6 tries and they've picked up 7 cards. And if you're going to do that against the world champions, you are unlikely to emerge victorious on a regular basis. And there you go. For the first time since 1949, New Zealand have lost 4 in a row to South Africa. Right, now let's talk about the areas where South Africa can improve going forward. The breakdown. That's where it has to start, isn't it? I think that we were just very, very poor in that area. I don't think you'd put it down to Tony ball. I certainly don't. I think Tony ball has its own place within the overall game plan. I don't think that the breakdowns are something that are necessarily being influenced too much anyway by Tony ball. So you got to be saying, hey, listen, Springboks, we need to be better at the breakdown. The All Blacks, they beat us badly at the breakdown. It has to be said, especially in Cape Town. But it's an area in which we can improve, and it's also an area that we've seen stellar stuff from the Boks in the past. So I'm confident that that is something that we will improve. The lineouts, again, wasn't great, but again, it's an area where we have in the past been excellent, so I'm not overly concerned by that. But these bloody handling errors have got to come to an end, okay? Again, the breakdown, it was what it was, okay? You can be beaten in the scrums, you can be beaten in the lineouts, you can be beaten in the breakdown, as long as it's like 55-45, you know, not like if you get beaten 65-35, you're not winning the match, okay? But if it's 55-45 or thereabouts, you can still win the match. How many times have we seen the Springboks dominate the All Blacks up front? And when I say dominate, I mean 55-45, but New Zealand ended up winning the match. And the other way around, it has also happened. So I'm not overly concerned about those things. And especially because I know that it can be improved upon quickly because we've been so good at it in the past. But the damn handling errors, we have to sort that out. You cannot play Tony ball if you're going to drop the ball 5 or 6 times per 40 minutes. I know that's the second time in this video that I'm saying that. It's great to be expansive, it's great to be innovative, it's great to be creative, but you have to keep your hands and your eyes perhaps on the ball, because if you keep dropping it, you're handing the initiative back to your opponents. And teams like the All Blacks don't need any additional favors, okay? So that is something that I would very much like to see improved upon. Now, I'm also confident that it is something that will be improved upon, and I don't know about you guys, but I can see what is going on here in terms of Rassie's bigger plan. So 2019, we won the Rugby World Cup when we were not supposed to. 2023, we won the Rugby World Cup in perhaps the most difficult fashion ever. All those 1-point victories, the host nation, it doesn't matter who the host nation is. If you play the host nation, you are under the pump. And we took on France and we beat them. We beat England by 1 point, then of course the All Blacks by 1 point in the final as well. I don't think it can get any more difficult in terms of how you win the World Cup. And don't forget, we had a very difficult group as well, with a resurgent Scotland and a world #1 Ireland at the time. We actually lost that pool game. And now, as we attempt to win the Rugby World Cup, historically, for the 3rd time in a row, no one else has ever done that. We're still 3 years away, but I think that what Rassie is trying to do, especially by giving us this additional attacking dimension with Coach Tony Brown, he wants us to go there and win this World Cup in style, kind of the way that the All Blacks did it in 2015. They won back-to-back, remember? But in 2011, they got over the line, you could say, in rather questionable circumstances. Let's just not talk about what happened, especially in that final. I think that it was a disgrace, personally, what went on there. But you know, that's 13 years ago. Maybe it's time to get over it. Don't forget that quarterfinal when South Africa were refereed out of that Rugby World Cup. Don't forget that the Springboks would have played the All Blacks next in a semi-final. In my personal opinion, I think that New Zealand at that stage, having grown a reputation for choking at Rugby World Cups and having not won one for 24 years, and knowing that the Boks were their next opponents, I think they would have panicked in that semi-final and we would have beaten them. I really do. Anyway, it's in the past. We will never know if that's actually what happened. We lost in the quarterfinals, and we have to accept it, no matter how we actually feel about Bryce Lawrence. But I can't believe I just said his name in one of my videos, but okay. I think Rassie is trying to win this 3rd World Cup in a row in style. And the only way you're going to do that is by having someone like Tony Brown influencing the team's attack. And you can already see what's coming, what's going on. It's exciting to see it. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how this team continues to evolve. And I'm also kind of thinking, in a way, if you're a football fan, the way Brazil won the Football World Cup in 2002, they just beat everybody comfortably in front of them. Not one match was actually close. I know England fans might have something to say about that, but it wasn't close, okay? Brazil beat you fair and square. So, with that in mind, we now head to Argentina, knowing that as long as we win one of the 2 matches against them, we will win the Rugby Championship. And that's a great feeling. It's something that I'm very, very excited about. Now, just before I finish, there is something else I'd like to say. You guys will know that you are my core audience here on YouTube, but if you follow me on X, you'll see that I can get a little bit out of hand maybe with some of my posts there. I do it purely for the sake of the theatrics, okay? You get what I really think. X gets me trying to stir the pot a little bit, trying to have a little bit of fun and a laugh in between as well. I try not to get personal, of course. Never do that. Always draw the line when it comes to personal insults and attacks. But there is something that I'd like to say. Earlier in the week on X, I raised concern about hosting All Blacks test matches in Cape Town. The reason being, I grew up there, I'm from there, I lived there, studied there, all of those things. The Cape Crusaders, as they are sometimes referred to, South Africans who support the All Blacks, and especially in Cape Town, they do come out in their numbers. The mother city is the place where these supporters of the New Zealanders are at their most prevalent in number, and we've seen in the past that high numbers have turned out for All Blacks matches against the Springboks in Cape Town, obviously at Newlands in the old days, and there have been some horror stories, guys. I'm talking about spitting, punching, kicking, that kind of stuff. For those who may not have seen stuff like that, you can be very grateful. But also, it is something that sticks in my memory. 2001, 2005, 2008, Percy Montgomery lining up a penalty or a conversion and the crowd booing. You know, stuff like that. Like, I don't know, man. I don't think that South Africans should be booing their own countrymen. And if that is the kind of thing that's going on, then quite frankly, that venue should not be awarded matches of that nature. So I've actually said in the past that if I was in charge of SA Rugby or SARU, I wouldn't allow All Blacks test matches in Cape Town. I'm delighted to say that I've not only been proven wrong on that front, but things have changed so much, and I have no doubt that Captain Siya Kolisi and Coach Rassie Erasmus have played their part massively in this, that in this test match that we saw now in Cape Town, there were hardly any New Zealand supporters in that crowd. It was wonderful to see, because I've always made the point that it's our home game and home ground advantage should count for something. So I'm absolutely delighted to see that that is something that has now happened. And I want to reach out right now. If you are one of those people that have been nicknamed a Cape Crusader in the past and you're watching this video, I want to say to you, you are our countrymen as well. All countrywomen, we love you. We want you to cheer with us. We love your passion for the sport. Come on over to the green side. We're ready whenever you are. If you're ready right now, give this video a like, okay? And there is one last thought on that topic as well. People have said, well, how come the Springboks then can play test matches in Perth and Brisbane and these places? And I'm going to say there is a little bit of a difference, because we're not talking about Australians, for example, in Perth, going out to cheer against Australia. Although you could say that these days, with so many South Africans living in Perth for so long, that those kids that have become adults now, they are Australians and they're cheering against the Wallabies. But for what it's worth, if I was in charge of Rugby Australia, I wouldn't allow the Springboks to go anywhere near Perth. But there we go. That's my final thought on that matter. Guys, that's all I have to say for today. I would love to know if you agree with what I've had to say in this video. Let me know in the comment section down below what your thoughts were on this match. Maybe you agree with what I've had to say. Maybe you think what I'm saying is a lot of nonsense. Let me know. And if you really want to help me, because I assume you do, because you're still watching this video and that tells me that you've enjoyed it, you can hit the like button, or you can spear tackle or even croc roll the like button. You can subscribe to the channel as well. And if you would like to make a little financial donation to me, you can do that by looking around there. There's a button with a heart and there's a $ inside of it. That's called the Super Thanks button. If you don't see it, there's another button with 3 dots. And if you click on that, then you will see the heart with the $. If you click on that, it will allow you to make a highlighted comment on the video. I promise to hit the heart button on your comment, and I will also reply to it. You will get a guaranteed reply, and it will call on you to make a small donation. And I think I believe it starts at $1, which is somewhere around 15 Rand these days. In fact, on my last video, I got somebody from Australia who was kind enough to hit the Super Thanks button, and I managed to get the equivalent of 100 Rand. Turned out it was $7.99 Australian cents. Just shows you how much the Rand sucks these days. But If you would like to support me, those are some of your options. I would greatly appreciate it. And since you are still here, and I take it you would like more from this channel, guess what? If you're watching this on Sunday, the 8th of September, it happens to be Osturant's birthday. The 1995 and 2007 Rugby World Cup champion. I did an interview with him, a few weeks ago. That video is right over here for you to click on and go and watch. And I will see you in the next video.